So I am back yet again with another massive 2024 AFL trade update. This time going over a bunch of new news that we've got to do with the Richmond Tigers. Again, the last one of these I made, you guys actually really liked, and it seems like the news and information and updates just continue to come out more and more. Again, before I do get into all the latest trade news and whatnot that we do have to do with the Tigers, I would just like to say there is still quite a big amount of you guys who watch today's videos that are not subscribed. So if you could go ahead and maybe leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, that would be very awesome. And kind of Richmond related here, but there's this guy named Scoops who does like this AFL information page on Facebook, and you guys have been seeing on my community tab, I have been basically calling this guy out because he's had about one too many pictures with Monique Conti, and it's obviously, considering she's my future wife and whatnot, as you guys all know, it's sincerely pissing me off. So any Richmond fans out there, or just AFL fans, I might have to, challenge this dude to a boxing match, because I think that would be more entertaining than Jake Paul and KSI would ever be. And you look, there's actually something up for stakes here. Like, the thing up for stakes in that other fight is who can be the best YouTuber that children enjoy. For us, it's, me or Scoops who are battling for Monique Conti out here. So, you know what? I think if you guys would like to see that, comment down below, of course. But we've obviously got a Richmond trade update here, and it starts off by saying that Richmond reportedly won pick 6 and 13 for Daniel Rioli, adamant that those two picks are required. Gold Coast, however, have as many as 6 different suitors for the pick and may prefer to trade it into next year. What will Richmond do if Gold Coast trade it away first? Again, this is a big one, and I'd like also to say that if any of these trades happen by the time this video comes out, please don't go roasting me in the comments. I'm recording this at 10 o'clock at night. It's probably going to come out in about 15 or so hours. So I'm hoping none of them happen, but I don't think this one's getting done anytime soon. That's for sure. I'd be genuinely shocked if this one got done within the first week, because in reality, Richmond have every right to demand pick 6 and 13 for Daniel Rioli. He is not arguably their best player anymore. He is Richmond's best player, and they're Jack Dyer medalists now for their best and fairest. And Gold Coast, a team who, other than Gary Ablett, I don't think they've ever signed or traded for a guy near the Daniel Rioli level that he's at now. If he did the form that he did this year with the Tigers and did that on a team contending for the 8 like the Suns should be next year, he would have been All-Australian lock, and that's quite as simple. And he gets to go and play under Damien Hardwick now, where I'm 99% sure he's going to achieve that. So Richmond are basically trading up an All-Australian who is contracted for 3 years, who is and could be one of, if not the best halfback in the game next year. Gold Coast are going to have to semi-overpay, especially considering he's contracted. They want to do 6 and 20, which has become like 23 or 4 now because of the compensations. But Richmond are adamant they want 13, and I think this is fair enough. Obviously, 6 and 13 would not be a fair trade for Rioli. Rioli is probably not worth that. But where this comes into it is Richmond will probably offer a bunch of 3rd and 4th round picks to make this happen, where Gold Coast should be interested in accepting it, because it then helps them draft the academy players that they have this year, and they can move them on to next year, where they, I think, are supposed to have 4 academy picks in the top 30, which is crazy to think. Again, there's more here. Richmond and Fremantle are stuck in a stalemate as well, and it's about who will concede first. Freo are saying picks 10 and 18 are fair, and you need them for your rebuild. Richmond is saying you need Shea Bolton to win your maiden premiership, and we want 10 and 11 or no deal. Could be one that drags out. Again, I might have a biased hat on as a Richmond fan, but this is way more likely to get done than that Rioli one, because Shea Bolton is definitely worth 10 and 11. I do not care what Fremantle are trying to say, that that they just want to keep that pick, which I guess is fair enough, don't get me wrong. But in saying that, we got to remember 2 years ago, Shea Bolton was the best small forward in the game by far, and that was when he had a key forward. He hasn't had a key forward to be able to row from or do his magic from ever since Tom Lynch went down 2 years ago. And a small forward's best friend is a key forward who can bring it down to ground, and Shea Bolton hasn't had that. And in saying that, Shea Bolton still managed to kick like 35 goals for the Tigers this year, averaged like 20 disposals a game, and finished top 5 in their best and fairest, while being 1 foot out the door and not having a key forward to row from. He's going to go to Freo and have about 2 good key forwards to row from, and he's going to play midfield time there. I wouldn't be surprised if he nearly goes back up to 40 goals, averages the near 20 disposals on a team that's stacked. Like, why wouldn't you try and get Shea Bolton to the team, even if it means giving up 10 and 11? I think it's much more likely that Richmond will get 10 and 11 than 10 and 18. And if they do get 10 and 18, there will be something thrown in on top, because at Shea Bolton's best, which he hasn't been able to achieve because of his circumstance, he's the best small forward in the game who can become one of the best plug-in play midfielders in the game. It's just the reality of things, and Richmond are not going to budge on this, I wouldn't think, so we'll see how this goes. It also said that Jack Graham can leave when he wants to. However, word is that he hasn't fully made a decision. He's probably 90% out the door. Don't be expecting any good free agency compensation to come our way, any generous one, in fact. Best case is a second-round pick. Worst case is a end of second-round pick. Again, by the time this video is coming out, every chance Jack Graham is signed with West Coast. So again, don't yell at me in the comments if he has. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised. And yeah, I'm interested to see what that deal is going to be. And I guess future Jordan will know. There's also saying that the Liam Baker deal is interesting because it can go 2 ways. One, it could get done very quickly. Again, maybe by the time this video is coming out, will it be done? Who knows? Or it could drag on. So yeah, that's another interesting one to see how that goes. And yeah, there's obviously the talk of Barras, who will get to Hawthorn. Pick 14, most likely, and more, will be sent their way. And we kind of know that that's most likely going to happen. And this is the interesting one that I want to talk about, because this is kind of cool, right? Richmond is reportedly the hot favourite for Brisbane's pick 20. It will get done. Richmond may potentially trade a pick into next year as well, which we have heard. He goes on to say that, I love the idea, however, not a pick inside 20. If we look to move on pick 20 for a future first, I'd be receptive of that, or perhaps our first pick of the second round for a future first. Yeah, that's happened in previous years, but why I think Richmond will go hard for pick 20 might not necessarily be to keep pick 20, but they may go all in to use it as another trade piece. I actually saw someone say, what if Richmond get pick 6 and 13 for Rioli pick 20 and one of their, third round picks this year, maybe their future third. That would low-key be kind of a good deal that would probably get done. That way, Richmond gets to move up in the draft order. Gold Coast still get to keep that pick if they want to move into next year, like we've just previously spoken about. They can use pick 20 and then they can go on forward and then move it on for next year. What he is referring to here with this pick, maybe if we're going to move into next year, is the report that I spoke about on the channel that was suggested on SCN that Carlton are going to come extremely hard for one of Richmond's first round picks this year. And why they're actually doing that is because they genuinely believe they are a massive chance to get Dan Houston. The reality is of the whole entire situation is that if they get Dan Houston, they're not going to have a first round pick this year because they're going to be using it in the trade. But what they want to do is they want to move their next year's first round pick into this year's so they can keep a pick, because they believe the draft is that depth heavy that they're going to want to use a pick in this year's draft. It will probably complicate situations with Port Adelaide because we know they are dying for 2 first round picks for Dan Houston. So that will be a little bit scary. There's also every chance that Dan Houston still picks another team. So this could all completely fall through on its head, genuinely altogether. And we know the whole entire reality of things is that pick 20, it probably isn't enough that if Richmond have pick 20 and they want to move it on to Carlton, it's probably not enough that Carlton would be super interested in that. They may be more interested in like a pick 13 or 14. But there's not a whole lot of face value or a bargain in that for the Tigers, because they would ultimately be trading a good pick in this year that's going to be a great depth player, most likely because the draft is so good depth-wise, for a pick next year, which will be probably the same pick, don't get me wrong, but will be in what we have reportedly seen to be a much weaker draft that has like twice the academy selections in it to like teams like Gold Coast and I think even Adelaide, who I think are father sons or something. I'm not completely too sure. We don't know yet. The next year's draft, it will change as we get more into next year. So Carlton will come heavy for one of these picks from Richmond. Richmond could say, we want your future first, which will project it to be like 14. We might give you 20. Again, is that a fair trade? If we just say everything that I've said, that this draft should be way better, so a player at pick 20 would be like the equivalent of a player of like pick 13 next year? Maybe. But then in saying that, if you're going to refer to that as well and use that kind of logic, why would Richmond be interested in doing that deal at all? It legitimately just wouldn't make any sense for the Tigers to go down that road. So there's a ton of different situations the Tigers could do now. We also know that James Peatling did pick to go and be traded to the Adelaide Crows. So him touring Richmond and Richmond showing interest in him, I think they were looking at like a 3-year deal or something like that. We know that that's completely been thrown out the door. It will not be happening. James Peatling is not on the radar of Richmond anymore. He has picked his team. He will get to Adelaide, and none of that will obviously happen. In terms of any other free agents that the Tigers are interested in, as we know, currently no, and that will probably stay that way because there's not many usual late changes. But if the Tigers are probably going to go after anyone, it will probably be like a delisted free agent or two to try and at least cover some depth and bring in maybe some players who are looking to add some leadership and a redeeming quality to them being delisted, but also trying to improve on the Tigers. Again, a player like Brandon Parfitt, he comes to mind as a guy the Tigers might look for. And maybe a similar guy to what the Tigers did with Sam Naismith last year, just hopefully a little bit better and maybe last a little longer, I don't know. But again, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below on this Richmond update. Are you guys excited to see where the Tigers go here and how they're, of course, going to operate and whatnot? Who do you guys think they're going to be trading with, and what are they going to be the picks? I'd very much like to know if anything that has happened with Richmond at the time making this video, if anything at all, whether it's a signing, a trade, whatever it might be, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this all down below. Because yeah, it's kind of cool. So we'll definitely have to wait and see. But as I was saying, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.